We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Thursday. It is Thanksgiving. And I want to wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving. Now, if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, that doesn't mean you can't eat. Happy Thursday and fill yourself up. But I always like Thanksgiving. I like this time of year, mainly because it's an opportunity to get together with your family. I'm going to see my grandchild. That's awesome. Doesn't matter what day it is. I'm excited about that. But get to see friends and family and spend some time and reminisce and have fun and do all that kind of stuff. All too often, our days are filled with stress and problems and juggling. It's nice to have a day now and again to just relax. But here I am, Rational Boomer, working on Thanksgiving. Not really. I'm recording this in the late evening, early morning of Thursday. I'm going to get to bed and I'm going to ultimately do the things I'm suggesting you do. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully it's a great holiday for you. And in the coming month leading up to Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever you celebrate, it's going to be hopefully a cheerful and joyous time. We should all be entitled to stuff like that because it's been a rough one this year. Anyway, just want to give you a heads up that tomorrow's show, Eric will be on the show. He's from Iowa. He's a guest that's on frequently. He's got some great insights, and I already recorded it. So when you see that video, I'll be wearing the same damn shirt. It's not like I slept in the shirt. It's not like I didn't change clothes. I'm just doing it the same day. So anyway, be prepared for that. Eric, we always have a good talk. We've got some emails, so let's get to the fucking emails. First one says, "Hi, Mike. I hope you're doing all right." Yeah, I'm doing fine. Still have a little bit of a cold. I wanted to chat about something I've noticed lately. What, do I have broccoli in my teeth? Or have you seen how more and more journalists from both big news outlets and smaller ones are speaking up about their concerns regarding a potential second term for Trump? They're specifically pointing out the concerning and I've never heard it put this way, fascistic language he's been using. Yeah, it's ironic. They're probably getting nervous now because they know if Donald Trump does get in, it's going to impact them. The irony of this whole thing is the reason why Donald Trump has any power or had any power was because of those fucking media. They gave him the credibility, gave him free airtime, and they helped to make him president. Now they're getting fucking nervous. Well, if you're nervous, do something about it. Report the proper things. Keep the narrative working, exposing Donald Trump for who he is. Goes on and says, "I've been following this for a while. Given my interest in the rise of fascism and the time I've spent studying it, initially I was worried that the journalists in the U.S. wouldn't address it, but it seems like they're starting to pay attention and directly comment on it. I think they realize the threat it poses, especially regarding the freedom of the press. There's a fear that if Trump gets reelected, he might move to control the media. You think?" I agree, which could be a major blow to journalistic freedom. I guarantee you it will be a blow to journalistic freedom. What's your take on this? Do you think these journalists will keep calling it out as we head into the upcoming election season? It's a crucial discussion, and I'm curious about your thoughts on where this might be headed. 21 grams, Dennis. I agree with you. I think the media has been asking for something, and now they're going to get it, and now it's making them nervous. Like I said, Donald Trump wasn't a serious candidate until the media decided to give him all kinds of free exposure. That gave him some credibility, and then, of course, he got elected president. Now, he's great TV. He's a shit show, a moving shit show. And they like to scare people that are afraid of Donald Trump, so they do hype him up in some ways. But I think as we're in the final year leading up to the 2024 election, they are realizing that, oh, fuck, if we get him elected, this could fuck us up. And it's like I've said before, in anything you were talking about, whether it be people voting or people in government, nobody gets nervous about shit until they get bit in the ass. And I think the media is realizing they are going to get a big chunk of their ass taken out if they um, keep catering to Donald Trump. Yeah, I think they've noticed this. I don't know what it's going to mean leading up to the 2024 election, because again, they're like fight promoters. They're going to want to make this look like a battle of the Titans. Does that mean they will continue to help Trump? I don't know. Hopefully, they have enough sense. Hopefully, they're not like the Republicans and can't see beyond the end of their nose. But I too am seeing the signs. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully they'll do what they should do, if for no other reason than to cover their own ass. Thank you, Dennis. Next one, Mike, this is written in response to your response to my last email that you read earlier today when he wrote this about Project 2025. I totally agree that Trump and the Republicans have a very tiny chance of winning the next election. I'm not spreading fear, or am I overly fearful? If the citizens of the U.S. are not educated and warned about Project 2025, this plan could be put in place after any future election won by a Republican or a Democrat or even a new party. The point of my email was to encourage you and others to go to the website and see how much effort and money was put into the plan and who the authors are as a group. The Heritage Foundation have successfully transformed this country into a near oligarchy that it is today after 50 years. Please reconsider your position and totally research this movement. Thank you, Max. Max is the little fucking agitator out there. He honestly likes to give me a little pinch, and that's all right, Max. I'm happy that people are willing to do that. That's not a problem. And I understand what you're saying. I guess I'm looking at it at a broader situation. It is very pervasive, kind of insidious. I even heard somebody suggest that there are some Democratic or liberal organizations supporting this whole thing. The idea that the entire government is working against us does not surprise me. As I've said, the Democrats, as far as I'm concerned, prior to Donald Trump, were just as bad as the Republicans. We have a lot of things to consider with the Democrats. But as I've also said, we've got a shitstorm. We've got a dumpster fire going on with the Republicans. And we've got to take things one at a time. Too many people take all the problems and it overwhelms them and they get nothing done. We've got to take this a step at a time. My point is that the 2025 thing is rhetoric, is just propaganda at this point. It's not a real issue. That's not to say it couldn't be a real issue, but we have to take it a step at a time. This can't happen unless the Republicans get in power. So that's our first step. Make sure that doesn't happen. We have to elect Joe Biden. We have to elect a majority in the House and the Senate for Democrats. And if that happens, that 2025 thing isn't an issue. And what I was saying was the next step is if there's a blue wave on in 2024, at that point, the Republicans are going to have to step back and look at themselves. All the things they've done for the last 6 or 7 years, everything has failed. 2025 is that manifesto is part and parcel to all the things they did or tried to do during the last 7 years. What they will realize at this point is that it's all a loser. They can't get away with this stuff. As more and more things they're exposed for over the year, it's going to weaken them and it's going to make people look side-eyed to them. So what I'm saying is when we get to 2024, if the Democrats win, 2025 won't be enacted because there's nobody be able to do it. But again, I'm not saying it's totally not a risk or not a problem we have to worry about. It certainly is. But first and foremost, we've got to deal with the problem at hand. And that's about getting Republicans out of their positions, eradicating them, and getting Democrats in their position. Then at that point, we've got to start going, all right, Democrats, first things first, codify Roe v. Wade, deal with the guns, deal with healthcare, deal with schools, deal with that insidious group trying to pull their shit. We've got to take it a step at a time. I'm not saying you're wrong, Max. I agree with you completely. But too many people want to take it all on at once. Everything that's written, everything that's said, oh, that's just another thing on the pile that we have to worry about. Well, we can't worry about everything at once. That is not an imminent problem at this point. It could be a problem down the road, but if we take care of the things we're supposed to take care of, it'll be less of a risk. Hopefully that's an answer for you. All right. Thanks, Max. I appreciate it. And don't be afraid to stick your finger in my ribs now and then. I'm happy to hear it. Bo wrote this next email. Hey, Mike. I hope you're well. Why does everybody say that? Well, I suppose because I'm sick. Been loving all the guests and the evolution of the podcast. Hugs to you and yours. I'll spare you of my indigenous perspective. LOL. My thoughts. That's right. Bo is an indigenous person. My thoughts recently about MAGA, they may only have a small number of seats, but their support are the most dumbest and dangerous amongst the American population. My thoughts, Bo. And I will agree with you. And I've said this before. One of the most disappointing things I've found since Donald Trump was elected president was just how many stupid people, how many gullible people there are in this country. They are numerous. And that is troubling. That's something we have to deal with. I just think I was talking to Eric about it, and you'll hear it on the next show. I get feelings about things, whether it's a personal thing or a business thing. I can tell when things are going a certain way. It's almost like destiny. I can walk into a situation and talk to somebody, and I know it's going to go wrong or it's going to go well. And then when I feel it's going to go well, I just kind of trust it. I don't mess with it too much. I do my job. I do what I say I'm going to do, but just trust it's going to work out for the best. And that's always been my theory. I always say that everything works out for the best, and people will come and say, well, it didn't work out for the best for me. And here's why it doesn't work out for the best. People assume the worst. They always assume the worst. So when they're waiting for something to happen, they never assume it's going to be the best. So they're always fucking with it, and they're always trying to manipulate and control it. And in that process, they fuck up the whole thing. And that's why it turns out badly. If instead you think for the best, you do what you're supposed to do and don't panic, it ultimately will work out for the best. It sounds like that hocus pocus shit. I know that. But the fact of the matter is it's worked for me for years. It's a mindset. It's what you believe and what you expect. And you're more likely to head that way if you don't jumble your mind with all this negative shit, expecting the worst. Do never expect the worst, because it's just going to cost you in the end. All right, the next one is from Matt. He said, how's it going, Mike? Hope all is well. It's weird. It seems like a distant memory that all the House Representatives crap was going on, but it is a total embarrassment that joke criminal Jim Jordan represents anything to do with Ohio. This gentleman's from Ohio. I love my state. I've been here my whole life, and I'm proud of its history. But for me, diving into politics, it's really disheartening to see what's going on. Moving on. I love how you shut down Jeff. He is an absolute joke and had a question for an answer on everything. So typical. That is just how they are, and it's so fucking pathetic. I agree. What the fuck? My best friend fell for the trap, but we were young guys, so I hope there will be a day where this will be a distant memory and things will get better. Can't wait to be a guest on soon. You're more than welcome anytime. Excuse me. Rock on, Blue Dot Matt from Ohio. P.S. Go Buckeyes and Muck Fishigan. Yeah, he meant to do that. Buckeyes. Buckeyes just kick the shit out of the Gophers. Fuck the Buckeyes. Anyhow, let's move on. Thank you, Matt, by the way. Hi, Mike. The passing of Rosalind Carter is a sad moment for America. From all accounts, both her and President Carter were amazing people. I think that's clearly the case. The comparisons, if Biden's current situation to Carter's, is spot on. I often wonder what our country would have looked like if Jimmy Carter got a second term. We likely would never had a Reagan presidency and possibly never had either Bush's or Trump. Excuse me. I go for a cough drop. We definitely would be in a better spot. And I think that goes without question. Ronald Reagan, not a good guy. He put us on this trend down this slippery slope. He goes on to say, I saw a couple of things on TikTok that made me think. The first was a creator talking about why conservatives hate education and being smart. The creator called it a trauma response. They pointed out that in a lot of conservative homes, being smart was punished. They heard things like, don't be a smart aleck, or are you getting smart with me? People have been trained that thinking and learning are bad things. In my own life, I've heard things like this. I remember being told numerous times, and I quote, are you getting too smart for God? Basically, I was told that getting smart and learning enough to question my faith was bad, and that blindly accepting the religion I was raised on is good. I get what you're saying. Excuse me for the cough drop, but it's better than the alternative. There's something to be said for what he's saying here. The other thing I saw was on the yearly war about Christmas from the conservative right. They are once again blaming the left for ruining Christmas. The latest outrages are a black Santa statue in a wheelchair and a pride-colored nutcracker. Once again, they are saying these decorations will confuse children. This is just another example of conservative thinking. They have been convinced that if you include a minority or if you help those in need, then it somehow takes something away from them. If they would think critically about it, they would understand that there is nothing to get worked up about. However, as I previously mentioned, they are told from an earlier age that thinking and being smart is a bad thing. Thank you, Eric. And as I said, Eric will be on tomorrow's show, and he makes a good point. That's the one thing I couldn't agree more. When it comes to Republicans or it comes to some religious groups, they don't want people to think. They want to think for them. They want to indoctrinate them in their beliefs and just ingrain it in them. Because if people actually thought, they would see how silly some of these things are or how untrue they are. So I agree with you, Eric. I think part of it is indoctrination. Part of it is a fear of education, because then they'll be exposed for the frauds and criminals they are. I've gotten that a lot in my life too. Ever since I was very young, I had a pretty good vocabulary, I always was interested in talking and writing and all that stuff. And I always did well in English. So I had a bigger vocabulary than a lot of kids my age. And people would always say, oh, you think you're smart because you can talk the big words. And, I'd say, not particularly. I just, I talk the way I talk. Why does it bother you so much that I talk the way I talk? And it's about them feeling inferior. Now, in those days, I was a lot more diplomatic. But if they said to me today, do you think I'm inferior to you? I'd say, fuck yeah. Yeah, you're definitely dumber than me. There's no question. And I would suggest that about Jeff or any other Trumplefuck that we talk to. They're dumber and they're more gullible. And if they aren't dumber and they know better, then they're willfully complicit. Either way, not somebody I want to fucking deal with. All right. Thanks, Eric. Be listening for the show tomorrow. Eric will be on. All right. Next email says, I know a lot of people weighed in on Jeff. Here's how I heard it. You would speak two syllables of a sentence and he would have a gotcha moment. Yeah, you try. Instead of interruption of you, listen to the facts, truth, and evidence. It's sickening to listen to someone in a van down by the river that thinks they have everything figured out. Why can't it be truth, evidence, and facts? Why is everything a Q conspiracy? On another note, I've been trying to understand the Israel-Palestinian situation, and one moment I agree with Palestinians, and the next I agree with Israel. It's a tough one. You really can't make a decision there without getting yourself in trouble in this country. And since I'm not involved in it, I'm not going to offer opinion. I think both sides do some serious shit. And each side will say, well, we have reason to do it because of this. I think anytime you are hurting civilians to benefit whatever goal you're going after, that's a problem. I don't care if it's Israel, Palestine, Hamas, or fucking Alabama. I don't care. If you're hurting innocent people, you're fucking wrong. Now, I'm sure that'll piss somebody off, but I don't really give a shit. All right, next one comes from Darren. If you deep dive, it's so complicated, and I'm a hayseed from Montana. I wish I had an answer. It has been so sad for too long. Same with guns. I wish I had an answer. I love shooting guns, but we have to correct the state we are in. I can't wait for a gun or pass the background check that I'm safe. Why is it that such radical idea? A good question. I believe that owning a gun is a great responsibility, which I respect. Death comes out of the end of it. We used to shit in the outhouse, but we found a better way. Why can't we accept this change? Anyway, hope you get better soon and love your content and the listeners. Darren. Yeah. Well, because it's all about ego. And this is part of the reason why Donald Trump took hold so much. Donald Trump told people that the government's out to get you. But never fear, I am the answer. I am your champion. I am your savior. Now, I'm not saying the government isn't out to get you, but Donald Trump is definitely not your champion. He's enriching himself off your complicity. But that's what it is. You got people that have low self-esteem, feels like every day is horrible because the government's trying to take them out. And finally, we get one guy that's going to fight back. Well, darn the luck. You put your trust in him and he didn't fight back for you. You would think you'd let go of it at that point, but of course you don't. It's people that are desperate. And, and I've said this before too, when Hillary ran against Donald Trump, there should have been a red flag for the Democrats and the Republicans alike that they should have acknowledged and recognized. Hillary Clinton was far and away a better candidate for president as far as experience and temperament and all that stuff. But people in this country, some of the people, maybe all the people, were tired of establishment politics. They didn't like the way things are going. They didn't like how they were being treated. So they wanted to do anything to get away from establishment politics. So what do? They vote for the guy that's allegedly not establishment politics. They took a flyer. They took a chance. Well, Donald Trump, we don't know too much about him, but we know we don't like this shit, so let's vote for him. And that was the fatal flaw. He was the only other option. Now, if we can get a Democrat or a Republican who's reasonable and isn't an establishment person, maybe we can get people interested in that. But government, Democrats, Republicans, understand people of this country are getting tired of the everyday shit that you do and the way you do it. They were desperate for a change. They took a chance on Trump and they fucking failed. So Next time around, give people better choices and stop doing the bullshit that you do. All right, next one comes from V. And V says, "Hi, Boomer. I'm a loyal Gen X listener. You have never, but have never emailed you previously." Oh, this must be a different V. "I had a cough like yours and mine wouldn't go away. So I went to the doc and was put on a quick 5-day course of prednisone. It worked wonders. I know it's not a drug that is safe long term, but a short course is safe. I feel for you as I've been there. Please take care of yourself. We need your voice out there. Best V." Well, V, thank you. That's probably good advice. Things are getting better every day. It is hanging on a while. As I've gotten older, colds and aches and pains have lasted longer than they normally do. I used to heal pretty quickly, but I'm 63, so that's obviously why it takes longer. But I am getting better, V. I think by the weekend I'll probably be fine. But if it continues to not get better, I'll take your advice. I'll go into the doctor and I'll say, "Listen, V told me to give me some drugs. V knows what's up. It worked for her. I think it's her. The other V is a her. But give me the prednisone because I'm no hero. If I'm sick and I can't get rid of it, I'll take virtually anything to get it done." All right. The next one comes from Deborah DZ hold on. I got to see is Deborah or Deb. I get these confused all the time. Deb DZ. There is a Deborah too. Now she goes right to the remedy for my plight, my cold. Says, "Hi, Mike. First try straight honey before your podcast." Deb, I did that. And it does help. I'll give you this. It does help. It should help with coughing jags by coating your throat. I did it. It worked. Thank you. I read this before and I'd bought some honey for some tea and honey and stuff, but I took some honey straight away. I'm sure that's not great for my diabetes, but you got to deal with one thing at a time. She says, "I usually use honey, whiskey, or any dark liquor." Of course you do. "And lemon." Well, I don't drink. I could use the honey and lemon, maybe black tea, but I get your point. "I use equal parts of each, shaken really well in a jar or glass with a lid." That's usually a good idea. When you're going to shake something, a lid is kind of important. "It's the best cough medicine ever. Even our pediatrician, when we were little, prescribed it." I know you don't drink, but I'm telling you, when I get a cold, it drops into my chest and the cough lasts 3 to 4 weeks. This concoction has saved me. Just a suggestion. It's worth trying. Here's the thing. I quit drinking when I was 29, so it's like 34 years ago. I don't have any fears of drinking. Frankly, I felt like, I could probably drink now and be fine because I'm a little more disciplined. I have more to deal with, and I don't have that desire to go out and get hammered. But it just seems silly after 34 years of not having had a drink to have one. I appreciate it. Maybe somebody else out there can use that remedy. I will use the honey and I will use the lemon and probably the black tea. But I appreciate the tip. And I think it's good advice. I will tell you this, when I was younger, my grandmother had a similar thing with brandy. And I had a couple of brandies now and again back in the day. But I am getting better. Okay. We're on a tear with Mike's illness. This one comes from Teresa. "I'm a nurse and I got concerned today when you said you were sleeping in your chair due to shortness of breath. You have been sick for a few weeks now. I hope you have gone to the doctor to make sure you do not have congestive heart failure or COPD. Just worried. I enjoy your show. I listen every morning on my walk before my start work. Teresa, I'm not laughing at you, Teresa. It is a cold. I have been to the doctor. I'm fine. Uh, but it's so weird. Now that I'm 63, everybody thinks I'm so fragile. I appreciate the concern. This is strictly a cold I got from my 3-year-old granddaughter, and my wife has it too. This isn't congestive heart failure. I have no history of that in my family. My heart's fine. I've been to the doctor. I'm fine. But I laugh about this because of all the people, and I'm going to mention it here again because I get tired of fucking answering it. People will say to me, "Oh, you got that spot on your nose. My uncle had that. He got cancer and died. You should have that checked out." Well, I've had that spot on my nose probably 6, 7 years. It's nothing to do with cancer. I've obviously had it checked. It's not a big deal. I suppose I could do something with it if I was vain enough, but let's be honest. I get that whatever they would do to that dot, I got bigger issues to fucking deal with if I'm worried about aesthetics. So I just don't. I'm not that worried about it. I don't have COPD. I don't have congestive heart failure. I have a cold. I've had them before, and I know what it feels like. And I, and it isn't that I can't breathe when I'm sleeping. I got medication and shit. It's just that I don't like the feeling of when I'm laying down. I can breathe fine. I just don't like the feeling. It's an annoyance to me, and it's easier for me to sleep. I've got 3 reclining lounges back there. It's just as comfortable and it feels better. The time I fell asleep in this chair, that was an oddity. I don't normally do this. This isn't the most comfortable chair to sleep in. I appreciate your concern, but I can assure you it's a cold. I do have health care and I do go to a doctor, so I'm good. I'm really good. And I appreciate you listening every morning on your walk before work. I do. Please write some more, Teresa, but I will survive. It's the funniest thing. Since I got to be over a certain age, even my family thinks I'm fragile, and I'm not really that fragile. I've always been, when it comes to injuries and that sort of thing, I'm pretty tough. I don't go to the doctor very much because I'm not usually sick. The only bone in my body I've ever broken is my nose a couple of times. Um, but I just don't get sick. There's certain little things that I have to deal with. Type 2 diabetes. I take my pills. I go to the doctor, and that's fine. But I noticed this after I turned 50. I used to get up real early in the morning. I'd stay up late, get up real early in the morning and go to work. And I'd come home and I'd sit in a chair. And inevitably, sometimes I'd fall asleep sitting up. Not intentionally, but I did. And when I was younger, my wife or my kid would come along and they'd shake me and go, "Oh, you lazy old man, get up, get up." But then after I got to be a certain age, 50, 52, 53, when I fell asleep in the living room, they'd come over frantic. Mike, you okay? Fuck, I'm just sleeping, man. Leave me the fuck alone. People in my family think I'm fragile. I don't get sick, man. Except for this cold, I really don't get sick. I go to the doctor a couple times a year and I'm fine. I'm not fragile. I've always been tough enough to handle shit. But I'm also smart enough to know when I'm sick and I know I'm sick, I go immediately to the doctor. I'm not one of these fucks that say, "I'm never going to the doctor," because I know a lot of people that did that and are dead now. I'm not stupid enough to do that. But thank you, Teresa. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking me along on your walks. All right. The last email comes from Old Soul. "Hey, Boomer, I have a quick message for the T-Rump Humpers listening. While doing the podcast with you, I said President Biden isn't running the country off tweets on Twitter and was doing things behind the scenes so he isn't risking the lives of hostages or negotiations. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Look at what Biden has shown us. Aid is getting to Gaza. Egypt has opened the bridge to allow refugees to cross. Hostages are being released. And even though it's temporary, Israel has agreed to a ceasefire. Biden is not only handling business for American people, he's handling business for the world, and he didn't have to stoop to immature, childish name calling and rants. This is what a strong leader looks like: patient, diplomatic, compassionate, and unwavering faith in democracy. Biden does what's right for the people. He doesn't make decisions based on what polls say because he understands it's not all about him. He knows what people say about him, but his confidence doesn't allow him to dwell on it. He doesn't feel the need to have interviews and rallies, bitching and complaining about what the media thinks about him. T. Rump isn't strong. He's not a man of his word. He's literally running out off the same lines and false premises he made in 2015. He never built a wall. He never revamped healthcare, and he never came up with an infrastructure bill. He doesn't even know what a bill is. He's bringing back the Muslim ban, except now he wants to add immigrants to the ban. Every economist were throwing up red flags that we were headed to a recession before COVID hit. COVID just gave him an excuse to lie about the economy. He took billions out of the economy by giving tax cuts to the wealthy with no plan on how to make up for lost revenue. How many times does he have to file bankruptcy before people admit it's not a good idea to trust him with the largest bank account in the world? The things T. Rump is doing and saying, his personal attacks, bashing our military, tearing down our institutions, not believing in the rule of law, his threats, lashing out, and jeopardizing the lives of private citizens is the complete opposite of what it means to be a strong leader. T. Rump is weak. He's feckless, inarticulate, moronic, and he's a coward. That's just reality. And like Fonnie Willis said, deal with reality or reality will deal with you. Thanks, Boomer. Old soul. She has a PS. What do you think of T. Rump removing the orange goo from his face? I don't know what's worse, him looking like a spotty orange villain or a pissed off ghost. No wonder his supporters have to falsify all his pictures. I guess that's something we all have in common. None of us can stand the sight of him. Old soul. It's always tough with old soul. You know, normally I would respond to what somebody says in an email, but she fucking said it all. She said it better than I could say it. If I was going to say something in the most perfect way I could do it, I would say it like she did, but I'm not her, so she said it. And I don't think I need to add to that at all. I think she nailed it, and I appreciate her for sending the email. Now, the only thing she asked about was this thing, and I only saw it in passing. I don't know what it is, but apparently there's some pictures of Donald Trump without the spray tan and something weird with his hair. I don't know if that's a real picture or not, and I didn't get a close look at it. But Donald Trump's not an attractive man. Even if you throw orange paint on him, it doesn't help a lot. But it would be interesting to see if he's going to go that way now without the spray tan. Does he think that's going to help him? It's not. But I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. What happened there? Did he just forget? Or is he trying a new style? I don't know. I don't know. There ain't much you can make. There ain't much you can do to make Donnie look better. But I'll enjoy and have fun with watching him try. All right. We are going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. You know, during the break, I was thinking about people complaining about this spot on my nose and my myriad other imperfections. I was thinking, you know, maybe I could take some notes from George Santos. Maybe I need to get some Botox, or maybe go to Sephora and get some makeup, some what are the cover up, if you will. Nah, ain't gonna do that. like I've said, I'm throwing it out here, warts and all. Never claimed to be a TV guy. Now I'm on video a lot these days, and I've learned to just deal with it. I have low expectations. I'm not an on-camera guy, but unfortunately, you're being forced to watch it, so we'll just deal with what we have to deal with. But maybe Botox would be good. I don't even know what the fuck Botox does. Um, I think it gets rid of wrinkles. And, while I have some wrinkles, that's the least of my fucking problems at this point. All right. The big story yesterday, of course, was that two people were killed in a vehicle explosion at a bridge that links the United States and Canada near Niagara Falls, leading to the closing of all nearby border crossings between the two countries. Now, as I understand this story, and I think more will be coming out of it, apparently there was a car coming across the bridge. Now, some people say it was from Canada to the US, but best I can tell from the people that I trust, it was coming from America into Canada. I don't know that that makes any difference. And when it first came out, it said that this car came across at a high rate of speed and crashed into one of the investigation booths or whatever. And it exploded and started to burn. Now, of course, immediately people started thinking this is a terroristic attack. And that's feasible given the circumstances. We're on an international bridge. This car runs into a government building. It's the day before a holiday when a lot of people are going to be using that bridge. I mean, I think that's a fair assumption if you look at all the details. But then they said that there were no explosives in the car. And so they're assuming that the car just crashed and burned and blew up. Okay. And I guess that's a reasonable possibility too. I went onto TikTok and said there's something funny about that scenario though. Now, in my previous life, when I was a traffic reporter, I worked in a DOT office. They had 500 cameras throughout the metro area in Minneapolis and St. Paul. 500 cameras. I watched them all day. I did reports on what I saw. And in the 27 years of doing that, I literally probably watched more crashes than anybody in the country. I'm not saying that just because I'm patting myself on the back, but I had people within MnDOT suggest that, and they had me talk to people about these crashes. After you see so many crashes, you learn some things. And the funny thing about it was, and I was wrong ultimately because I didn't know all the facts, but here's what I'll tell you about crashes. If you watch TV and movies, it's not unusual for a car to crash and then all of a sudden blow up. But I'll tell you this in real life, in the thousands of crashes I've seen in my life on these cameras and the aftermath of said crashes, the amount of times a car has exploded after a crash or even a fire in a car is extremely rare. I can count on my one hand how many times I've seen a car explode. And the other factor is if they do explode, it isn't like they explode instantaneously. It takes a while. It takes a while. So I thought that's kind of suspicious about this car. Goes and crashes into somebody or into a building and immediately bursts into flames and blows up. That just doesn't typically happen. And I did that on TikTok, and then somebody gave me some further information that I didn't know that kind of changes the whole story. And I saw the video. This car was going at an incredibly high rate of speed, and it looked like it went off a ramp and it was literally flying through the sky and crashed into this building. Well, that's a different story. That's not your typical crash. If you've got a car 3,000 pounds or more flying through the air, crashing into a building, that's an entirely different kind of crash. And in that case, I guess it's conceivable that there was an explosion. Now, I don't know that it was a terroristic attack. In fact, I think it probably wasn't. I heard a report just before I went on here, And I don't know if it's true because I didn't take the time to verify it, but somebody said it was a guy in his 50s and he was driving some very expensive Bentley or something, and he'd just come out of a casino. Now, that kind of sounds like a bullshit story, to be perfectly honest with you, but that's what I heard. And I guess we'll find out more. The bottom line is this caused all kinds of concern, and the concern continues because, again, we're going into today's holiday. So it'll be interesting to see what they ultimately come up with. Now, this was the Rainbow Bridge between, I think, Buffalo, New York, and Canada. The car passed the first checkpoint and was heading to a second when the explosion occurred. There were 2 occupants in the vehicle. They're dead, according to CNN and the Associated Press, and at least 1 Border Patrol officer was injured during the explosion. The exact cause of the explosion is unknown, but there is no indication of a terroristic attack, the Governor Hochul said in a press conference. Multiple outlets reported that no explosives were found inside the vehicle, and according to Reuters, it's likely the explosion was caused by reckless driving. Yeah, no shit. He was running at a high rate of speed. I heard one witness say he was going like 100 miles an hour. He said the car went airborne during the explosion. The explosion happened while it was airborne. I didn't get that sense at all. I saw the car airborne in the video. There'd be no reason it would explode while it was airborne. It had to hit something. And when you have a big car like this crashing into something, well, then it's conceivable there's going to be an explosion. Anyway, the FBI Buffalo field office and local state and federal authorities are investigating the incident. The FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force is also on the scene. Now, Canadian Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc called the incident a very serious situation. He said, I've been briefed on the incident on the Rainbow Bridge in Niagara Falls, and we are closely monitoring the situation. Now, by the time you hear this podcast, we may know way more about this. The question is, if there were no explosives in the car and it blew up, we kind of know now just by virtue as it was flying through the air and crashed into something, and you've got a lot of gas on board and electrical stuff, that's conceivable. But was it terroristic? Doesn't sound like it was terroristic, because if it was terroristic, they would have put enough explosives in that car to do some serious damage to the bridge. Now, it was pretty significant, the explosion and the fire, but it probably would have taken more than that. Now, there's another aspect of this. Was it intentional? Not necessarily terroristic in the traditional sense, but it could have been intentional. There's going to be a lot of, I have a feeling they can look at the registration from the car with what's left of it and find out who owned it and talk to their family and say, is your relative fucked up? Because he's dead now, but tell me, is he fucked up? And they'll be able to investigate it. So we'll see what happens. It's a scary situation for everybody involved. I don't think it's a huge terroristic thing at this point. It's some stupid, crazy, drunk fuck that had an expensive car and drove wildly out of control. I mean, we had a situation like this in my neighborhood. There's a lot of people in our neighborhood in this area. Sorry, that have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money, but a lot of people around here do. And there's this guy. He wasn't rich, but his dad was rich, but he was like 50 years old. He's hanging out in bars, driving an expensive car. Saw a couple of young guys. God damn it. Sorry. A couple of young guys at the bar. They were hockey players. One was the son of the Gopher hockey coach. And he's hanging out, getting drunk, trying to be young. Gives them a ride home, crashes, kills both the kids, and survive. Damn it. So anyway, there are just some dumbasses in this world. And this guy was probably one of them. All right, we've got another thing that was mentioned in the emails. And what that is, of course, is this Israeli Hamas war. We got some good news. Hold on a second. I got to settle this down a little bit. We'll see what happens when you get coughing. It kind of creates a, not a spasm really, but a chain reaction. And I've become aware of this after having gone through this a couple times. And you got to get through that. Otherwise, it just keeps going. So if I stop or I settle down for a second, it's because I'm controlling that shit. And once I do, it's fine. And I'm not fucking fragile. Back off. Anyway, so the Israeli Hamas war. People are mad at Joe Biden because he supports Israel. And I've said it a million times. We are Israel's ally. It is our responsibility to support Israel. Whether you like it or not, we have to. Whether you would be a Democrat or a Republican president, you would be required to. But they're mad. At least that's what the Republicans are telling us. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's national security advisor says a planned hostage or prisoner swap with Hamas has been delayed until at least Friday, but it's going to happen. Now, the reason it's delayed is because of logistics. These hostages aren't all in one spot. You've got them in other parts of the Gaza Strip. You've got to pull them together and do all that shit. And of course, Hamas is saying, well, why don't you just quiet it down while we get the hostages together? And Israel's saying, no dice, motherfucker. You give us the hostages, then we'll give you the ceasefire. So it's kind of a standoff there. But that's why they're delaying it till Friday. Now, in a statement released late Wednesday, I can't pronounce this properly, Zachi Hanegbi, close enough, said that contacts on the deal were continuing. The release will begin according to the original agreement between the parties and not before Friday, he said. The swap was to take place as part of a 4-day truce in the war in Gaza, expected to begin today, but it won't begin today. Hanegbi gave no explanation for the delay, and it was not immediately clear when the ceasefire begins. Well, we know now why it's going to be delayed. And so hopefully Friday that will happen. The point I want to make is, as much as people might be mad at Joe Biden, and as Old Soul pointed out, all of this shit that's happening that's good, the ceasefire, the getting supplies to the civilians, the exchange of hostages, that's all because of Joe Biden. Now, these people that are mad that Joe Biden is supporting Israel think he's going over there and giving them guns and let's shoot them up, let's kill everybody. That's not what he's doing. That's not what Joe Biden's about. Joe Biden is about trying to quell this thing, trying to settle it down. He supports Israel, but he's not supporting in the sense that he's going to stand side by side and fight with them. He wants the fight to end. Now, all the people that claim that Joe Biden is going to take a beating in the election because of his stance with Israel, I disagree. We're a year away from 2024. When I look at what happened now with this temporary agreement, as I've always said, I don't look at the worst possible things. I look at the best possible things. As much as Joe Biden is taking heat for supporting Israel, I have a feeling, because of his diplomatic background, his years of experience, I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Biden is able to work something out, settle things down, and ultimately stop the war. I'm not saying he's going to do that tomorrow, but he's headed that way. So if he accomplishes that, um, if he accomplishes that, that's going to be a positive going into 2024, that he was able to stop this and hopefully give some peace and some compromise to this situation. I like to look at the positives of things. This is a bad thing right now. It's kind of like COVID. Donald Trump wasn't smart enough to understand this. COVID started. He thought this was going to affect his um, election negatively, and it did, but not the way he thought. That's why he decided to ignore it. Oh, it's really not that bad. Don't blame me for this. Now, if Donald Trump has gotten on his fucking bicycle and did everything a good president would do to help deal with the COVID situation, he would have been a fucking hero. And he probably would have won in 2020 just based on that. But he's too fucking stupid. Joe knows that this is a tough time for him and he's getting bad press for it, but it's also an opportunity. And if there's anybody that's going to broker some peace in that area, it's going to be Joe Biden. So this may end up being a net positive for Joe Biden. Just watch and see. I mean, with all the things he's got going positively, and all the negative things the Republicans have, throw in the fact that Joe Biden brokered peace in the Middle East. Fuck. Just watch. Let's see what happens. All right, down in Georgia, Fani Willis can and will stand up to Donald Trump if he steps out of line, according to one legal expert. Former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner gushed about the fiery argument delivered by the Fulton County DA during a rare appearance at a bond violation hearing involving Harrison Floyd, the former leader of Black Voices for Trump and also a co-defendant in the Georgia election racketeering case. While contributing to the Michael Steele podcast episode, Kirshner hailed Willis's techniques during Floyd's hearing. Seeing that kind of passion coming out of a prosecutor that I've been longing for is what I've been longing for. Willis filed a motion to revoke Floyd's bond and made a passionate plea to say that Floyd had been scaring and reaching out to prospective witnesses in a way that breached the terms of his release. What he really did was spit on the report and refuse to oblige to 3 of the 7 conditions in the bond order, she said, holding the document up for Superior Court Scott McAfee's to see. Floyd, along with 18 others, facing fraud and RICO charges for conspiring to prevent Trump from relinquishing the presidency after being defeated by then President-elect Joe Biden. I don't think he's not going to be put in jail. I think there may be some things added to his bond requirements. But as he was saying here, it just shows that when it comes to these defendants, including Donald Trump, she ain't going to fuck around. She's going to have some passion and she's going to go after whoever it is, even if it's Donald Trump. All right. Now you heard the story that Speaker of the House Mike Johnson decided he'd be a hero, and he released all the surveillance video from January 6th in the Capitol. But now the security surveillance dump announced this week, all the Republicans claim it'll show January 6th Capitol riot was mostly a peaceful affair. It's probably going to blow up in their faces. And who's surprised? The Republicans always embarrass themselves. Now, writing for the publication Salon, Amanda Marcotte says the tactic of releasing the footage as an attempt to absolve those who participated doesn't seem like the smartest electoral strategy. But the GOP now is primarily composed of professional trolls who cannot turn down an opportunity to spew bullshit. Sure enough, some of the most annoying people in Congress tweeted conspiracy theories about the footage in language so fevered you could practically hear them panting as they typed. Now, Marcotte also points to a tweet from Republican Senator Mike Lee from Utah, in which he shared a picture of a convicted rioter who he claimed was an undercover federal agent. Of course, that was very easily debunked by an NBC reporter. Marcotte also points out that Georgia GOP rep Marjorie Taylor Greene shared Lee's tweet, but later deleted it after it was shown to be a fake. Lee nevertheless doubled down on the claim. She says, "We know Lee is lying because while Lee may not be the smartest man, almost no one is stupid enough to believe that the FBI did it." Conspiracy theory. She added that the point of these conspiracy theories is not to believe them, but to sucker liberals into go nowhere arguments with disingenuous actors. Remember that. The end of the game is to overwhelm their opposition with so many lies and bizarre digressions that people eventually get exhausted and give up. It's what I'm saying about the polls, what I'm saying about young people not liking Donald Trump. These are narratives. This is bullshit they put out there, and they keep putting it out there to cause confusion or arguments with Democrats. This is their game. They can't win with facts and truth and law. So they come up with lies and they put it out there, hoping somebody will believe it. And the fuck of it is, there are some Democrats that buy into the bullshit. They believe some of these things. They heard it third party from somebody else to somebody else, and then they repeat it. And then it comes from what you think is a legitimate source because they're just playing the telephone game and talking about this shit. What we need to do, what we need to understand is where this information comes from. And I'll guarantee you 99% of the time it's coming out of a Republican think tank or a fucking politician that just threw this shit out willy-nilly, not knowing anything about anything. It gets out there long enough and loud enough and people start believing it. Certainly the base, but in fact, some of the Democrats. When you hear something that doesn't sound good for the Democrats or that seems unbelievable, understand it probably is, whether it be polls or anything else. It's all part of their strategy. It's all part of their game. So stop listening to that bullshit. All right. Here's an interesting story. It's involving Mary Trump and her opinion on something. And I think this is a very, very important story. This is basically a smoking gun with regards to the Letitia James lawsuit. Former President Donald Trump's niece, Mary Trump, explained in her Substack Wednesday why a 5-word note from hell written by the Trump organization's top accountant could cost her uncle everything in the civil fraud trial in New York. It's one document and one little note that's put on that document with 5 words, and it fucks over Donald Trump. Now, we know Donald Trump and his family all testified. They all said the same thing. I don't know nothing from nothing. It's the accountants. I just signed that shit. I don't read it. I don't know anything about this. If something was bad there, not my fault. It's the accountants. Except this document and this note say otherwise. A scribbled note said to have been written by former Trump Organization comptroller Jeffrey McConney reads, DJT to get final review. 5 words. Now, that note appears on a document that was exaggerating Donald Trump's net worth by $3.5 billion. Not saying he made $3.5 billion. they're saying that it was a $3.5 billion exaggeration, and it contained all kinds of evidence of the fraud. She says, I shared this evidence with attorney Joe Galena of Call to Activism, who said, I can't think of a bigger smoking gun than one that says in all caps, Donald Trump must approve this on a document riddled with fraud. See, it goes against everything they've been claiming. I don't know nothing. But Donald Trump got the final approval on this particular effort at fraud. Now, the problem for former presidents and his adult sons who are currently on trial for exaggerating and manipulating the value of their assets is that their primary defense is that they simply followed their accountant's advice. And this piece of evidence would directly contradict that. But there's another problem with this document. And the problem is this. This document and this note was not provided in discovery by Donald Trump's legal team. They did not put it into the discovery. This came from Donald Trump's accountant, the company that handles his accounting, Mazars. They gave it to the court. They gave it to the prosecutors. That's interesting because Donald Trump's attorneys and Donald Trump himself are required to turn over everything. But clearly they tried to hide this particular document because they knew it was damning. What they didn't consider was that Mazars had a copy and they did turn it over. So not only does it prove Donald Trump's knowledge and intent, but it also proves they're trying to hide shit from the court. This is a big smoking gun. And as we know, they've already come up with a judgment. The judge has already decided that Donald Trump and the organization and the family are liable for pervasive and extensive fraud. They're now just looking to find ways to, or what level they should fine them and what they're going to be responsible for paying back because of ill-gotten gains. This document says he overreported his income by $3.5 billion. And there's proof with this little note that Donnie Trump knew about it. Everybody talks about intent. Well, that shows fucking intent. Not a good day for Donald Trump. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is so typical and so petty of Donald Trump. Former President Trump provided an explanation for what he claimed was erroneous reporting about the size of the crowds attending his rallies on the campaign trail Wednesday, blaming the lamestream media for supposedly misrepresenting them. Donald Trump's got 91 felonies. He's got a lawsuit that's going to take every bit of money and property he's got. And he's worried about the reporting of the weak turnouts at his rallies. This is the epitome of a narcissist. Now, Donald Trump said this, many times when I'm making a speech, which are always sold out, with lots of people not being able to get into the arena or venue, the fake news will watch people come down from the rafters, bad seats, onto the floor near the stage. Trump wrote in his random cap style, as soon as this happens, the lamestream media starts taking pictures of these once fully occupied arenas and seats and then come out with the story, Trump arena wasn't full or Trump didn't have a sellout, when they know that's not true. Well, here's the thing. There aren't people in the seats. And if we look at the area in front of the stage on the ground, on the floor, that's not exactly full either. So, Donnie, nice try, but people just aren't showing up. They're tired of your bullshit. Donnie goes on to say the fact is thousands of people get sent away. We never have empty seats. Bullshit, because we're selling a product people want, American greatness. Well, Donnie, you might liken yourself to the greatest salesman ever, but it ain't working anymore. He says, this is a movement like none other. Of course it is. And the failing media should get on board now. Oh, yeah, let's get on board this sinking ship. Our country needs it, and they need it because their lack of credibility is causing many news organizations to fail. Which ones are failing? Well, Truth Social is failing. They might be out of business soon. They're going out of business because they don't tell the truth. Make America great again. Now, here's a desperate motherfucker. Trump has long obsessed over coverage of his crowd size, most notably contesting reports that much fewer people show up for his inauguration in 2017 than attended former President Barack Obama's in 2009. Well, the fact is, that's true. You remember when Sean Spicer insisted the greatest inauguration attendance ever. Yeah, what's he doing now? He ain't doing much. He's doing shitty TV spots, and he's lucky to have that. I wanted to bring up one other thing. That freak of nature speaker, Mike Johnson, there's a audio recording that came out of him talking, and he said some interesting shit. He called human beings in general inherently evil and referred to abortion as an American Holocaust. CNN brought these up. Andy Kaczynski of K-File joined Tuesday's Out Front, where he shared his findings with Aaron Bennett. Johnson said it is truly an American Holocaust. And he did that in a radio interview in May 2022. It's not like it was years ago. He says, I mean, the reality is that Planned Parenthood and all these big abortion, they set up their clinics in inner cities. They regard these people as easy prey. I mean, it's true. This is what's happening across the country. That's absolute bullshit. Kaczynski went on to say he found a clip of Johnson opposing gay couples adopting children. Johnson claimed that homosexuality is a behavior and therefore not covered by anti-discrimination laws. Yeah, wait till the stuff comes out on you, motherfucker. And that sort of goes into this next clip that I want to play, which is him discussing what he thinks the proper role of government is, said Kaczynski. Johnson said, one of the primary purposes of the law and civil government is to restrain evil. We have to acknowledge collectively that man is inherently evil and needs to be restrained. That's the problem with the radical left. They don't acknowledge God. Yep, the left doesn't have guns and they don't like God. Nice try, Johnson. Kaczynski added that Johnson also supports imprisonment for abortion doctors and the elimination of hate crime statutes. So you get to commit hate crimes. Good to know. Shortly after being elected speaker last month, Johnson gave an interview with Fox News in which he said his worldview amounts to, well, go pick up a Bible off the shelf and read it. Mike Johnson isn't long for his position. And it won't be the Democrats that get him out. It'll be his own BFFs, the MAGA fucks, because Mike Johnson doesn't have the strength or the position to do MAGA's bidding, and they're going to get pissed off about it. So I don't know that we can take him too seriously. He's in a position of power now, so we do have to take that seriously. But this guy is going to get exposed for everything he is. And as I've always said, if the more overtly religious somebody is, the more judgmental they are, in my experience, they tend to be the most despicable fucks ever. And I think we'll find that Mike Johnson is a pretty despicable guy. He's gone a long way, tried to hide his income and his wife's income. There's something fishy going on there. And I trust somebody like Politico or Axios or somebody is going to find it. And when it comes out, it's not going to be a good day for Mike Johnson. He'll be just another Republican that will think to themselves, God, I should have just stayed under the wire. But They can't help themselves. The ego gets away from them and they fucking end up destroying themselves. So we'll give Mike Johnson a couple of months maybe, and he'll be done. Maybe quicker than that. All right. We are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day this Thanksgiving day. I hope everything goes perfectly for you. I hope your drunk Trump-la-fuck uncle does not come to dinner, because that's not going to bode well. And of course, we'll talk to you again tomorrow.